And if you guys would too, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, welcome. It's Thursday, March 18th, 2021, just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Daylight Time. And this is the Pane Consulting Parcel Fabric Workshop. Before we start, we've got some housekeeping to take care of. Next week, for the normal type of deep dive, we're doing something different this month. And that we've talked to GIS Inc., who's one of our strategic partners, and they're actually going to go and provide a webinar on enterprise server, how to implement it, how to make sure that your server's all set up for it. Matter of fact, the most recent notice that I just sent out talked about this, getting enterprise ready. And that's next week. The difference is you have to register for this webinar. This is not using GoToMeeting. This is actually using GoToWebinar, and it's actually out of their account, not mine. So they're going to talk about it, what enterprise is, enhancements, how to go and set it up, and some of the security issues you might have, and they'll be able to answer questions for us on there. So just a reminder, next week, don't come to our deep dive workshop. Go to that deep dive workshop instead. That's the first bit of housekeeping. Second thing, I actually have to cut out of here about 4 o'clock, so I only have about an hour here, but Chris and Brian are going to stick around and they're going to finish up the workshop. But because I'm not going to be talking after 4, we're going to have Ryan Stovern from St. Louis County. He's going to go and give us some discussion about some of the things he's doing with tasks, because that's our main topic for this month is tasks, the standard tasks and stuff on the parcel fabric, and what they do, what they don't do, and what the limitations are on them. Third item, before we start, I was just pointing out to some of my team that the standard with the parcel fabric, the standard labeling expression that's used for the COGO values, basically it goes and, for example, this right now are the tax lines, the tax parcel lines with the bearing and distance. And what's nice about this is that it goes and actually calculates, for example, the bearing off of the line itself, because the line is actually stored, the bearing is actually stored in here. Come on. First time I opened this, I'm sorry. The bearing is actually stored as a number field, not as a string field anymore. So they actually go and they calculate it here in order to go and represent how to go and show it to you. I'm not going to do that anymore. And then they have a string here. Matter of fact, you'll see this labeling expression here. They've got quite a label expression here that goes and actually calculates everything, sets it all up for you. It's a really nice expression. And if you want to learn a little bit more of arcade, that's a good expression to go and utilize and see everything from using dictionaries to doing some formatting on there. But as always is, if you look at it, and I specifically want you to look here at these 2 dimensions here. The one above the line is good, but the one below the line, if we go and take it, instead of doing direction and distance, and we tell it just to go and show us the distance on there, you'll see that what happens is that it leaves a space here. And let me turn this off again and see, it leaves that space for the bearing, but it's an empty space when it's just the distance. And this is sort of just, they took the same label expression and just copied it over. But some of us are a little fanatic about this, and that space should not be there. So I just want to go and demonstrate that inside the distance label expression inside the standard parcel fabric expressions, this is at the bottom of the expression itself. There's two lines in here, and it says assemble the. This is at line 185. It says assemble the label string. It says if it's empty, meaning it's not a radius and it's not a curve, so then go and return the bearing value and then a carriage return or a new line on there, and then put the distance in. And then else, if it says it's not a curve and it's supposed to go below the line, go in and put the both in. So what we have to do is on here, in order to make this work correctly, is that when it's not a curve, we have to tell it to take and not put the direction string and the new line code in there, and just put the distance field in. And when we go and hit apply on here, you'll notice that the actual label is where it should be. It doesn't have that extra line in there between the actual line and the other one. So just a little tip, something that we've picked up on and sort of want to make sure that it goes and is consistent throughout here. And again, we did this with the ArcMap Parcel Fabric where they'd have label expressions that sometimes didn't work. We just want to make sure that these things work the way they're supposed to work. All right. So today, what we want to do is we want to talk about tasks. And a task is a predefined set of steps and procedures that allow you to go and repeat the same process over and over and over again. And with the parcel fabric, and I believe it was started with 2.5, they started putting some tasks in there. 2.5 is a little tough to figure out where they were. In 2.6 and above, however, they've made it much easier to go and integrate and to begin using the tasks on here. So in order to go and load a task inside of here, you go over to the Insert tab. And on the Insert tab, you'll see over here tasks. And we can pull it down and expose that there actually are, if I say import and open the task file, there's actually two sets of tasks that are shipped by default with ArcGIS Pro 2.6 and 2.7. And we're not interested in network analysis. We're looking at parcel fabric tasks. And when we click on that, here are the two tasks that are tagged as being parcel fabric. The first one has to do with administration. This steps you through taking a file geodatabase and publishing it on a service. That's what this first one is. If we click on that, it will actually go in and provide us with those tasks, and we can work through them. It's actually a very nice set of tasks. I've used it several times until I got to know exactly the process as I was going through. And I'm not going to go over that. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the record-driven workflows on here. And if I click on OK and hit OK on here, it actually loads them up. So where does it load these? First thing we want to do is we want to go to our catalog pane. And in our catalog pane, there's actually a grouping for tasks. And we can see in here are the grouping on them. So once we go and start it up, it actually creates its own pane. This is the task pane that we can go and move around and put wherever we want to put it. I'm just going to put it right back here again. And this is the task pane, which includes all of the tasks in here. So the tasks are merge parcels, a parcel split from parent parcel, parcel split using meets and bounds, parcel split with area description, and build parcels from CAD lines in here. So if we look at the options on our pane, mostly it's just edit in designer. So there's not a whole lot we can do here. However, if we click on the messages before we even go into the tasks, we can see that I have 8 different errors associated with these. And these errors are caused because the layers that I have inside my parcel fabric are named differently than the layers inside their standard or inside the parcel fabric that was used to create these tasks. So to correct this, literally all I have to do is just double click on here and it will open it up and say, okay, here is the error. So if I click here and it says my parcel editing map, all right, that refers to the actual source. So this would be here, the parcel editing map. It's now actually called map. Excuse me, it's actually called layers on here on mine. So I then go and set that, and that is my layers. The next thing it's looking for is it's looking for the actual parcel polygons and the parcel lines layers inside of here. So as I click on that, I can then go and tell it, these are actually called tax layers, tax polygons. And my parcel lines are actually called tax lines on here. All right, I can close this out. It then tells me there's no errors left on here at all. So the first thing is that the tasks themselves have embedded inside of them the actual name of the layer and the actual map on which those layers occur. And until you reset it, you can't use any of these tasks at all for doing any sort of editing on here. But once it has been set, and once it's been set for your configuration, you can continue to use them however you want. All right. So Ryan, have you, let's let Ryan start talking. Ryan, have you had any issues with setting up your tasks or taking care of any of those incorrect references, the resources, components on there? I lost Ryan. I don't hear him at all. All right.
I'm back. Can you hear me now, Frank?
I can hear you now. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were on a phone.
No, I was muted.
Okay.
Yeah, when it comes to the fabric tasks, I have not used those yet because we haven't implemented the actual portion of that yet. I've just been building ours out for our control points and what we've talked about, what I'll be talking about later. So
yeah. So it is. So you've not used any of the standard tasks whatsoever, but it is important that the individual tasks have to have the resources set correctly. So it has to have the map in which it's located and the layers on which it's going to be referencing when you actually go in and go to run this in here. But as we saw, it's not a big deal to go and reset those resource pointers to make sure they're in the right location, and then it's calling up the right layers on them. All right, so let's actually go and look through some of these layers on here. I purposely am going to go and start something and cause an error just because I want to point something out on here. So if I go to merge on here, it's going to ask me, let's see if it actually is going to start this. It's going to ask me to create a record. All right, create a record. In this case, maybe I want to do a combine and tell it that I want to go and do it a certain date. By the way, just something that we've realized as we're going through here, that there's 2 ways to put in today's date. If we click on the calendar here, it only puts the date in, but if we click on today, it actually puts the date and the time in. So just to let you know, there it is. Oh, I told you I was going to create an error on here. So editing in the application is not enabled. So on here, by the way, I'm going to have to restart this as I go. On here, it turns out that 2.7 and above have this button that can be enabled inside of your project. It's an edit button, start editing and stop editing. And in order to enable that, I'm going to go to my options tab, go to my editing, and come down here. And under the session area, I have enable and disable editing from the edit tab. And initially in testing this, both in beta testing and early usage, I did not have that on there. But because of some of the work that I tend to do, I tend to build a lot of parcels, I tend to create records and do all that background stuff you need to do. I was constantly having to go, because you were always editing, you would run into problems where it would have locks on your data. And by enabling this edit button, you can tell it to stop editing and do all the geoprocessing without having a lock on your data. So again, I may be unique in being the only one to go and have that problem, but just to let you know, there is this new edit button that says start editing. I'm now editing, and I can do this, and it will be stop editing. Now, by default, I started using that, and I liked it, so I came down, went down my quick access toolbar, and decided to go and put all my commands in here. And if I looked at edit, there is disable editing and enable editing. Where is it here? Enable editing, that I went and I put over onto my quick access toolbar. So now I actually have it not just on my edit tab, which I always found a little tough because that's the only place it's located, but I also have it over here on my quick access toolbar. All right, so now let me start editing, and I'll go back here and do a merge, and I'll create a record. Merge test, this is a combine, and I'm now going to go and put in this and create the record. Then it asks you to go and locate using the locate tab. This is actually the locate pane embedded inside of here. And since I already know where I'm going to go and do this, I'm going to do the merge right here. I can just tell it to go ahead to my next step, in which case it tells me to go and select the two parcels. One of the nice things about this is that when it goes and sets this up, and I'm sure Ryan's done this when he's setting up the tabs, you can tell it what layers are selectable. So you don't have to worry about it going and selecting lines or points or anything else. You can just say, just select parcel polygons on here to go and do this. And then I can go ahead and say, next step. It brings up the standard merge tool on here. And again, I'm doing this for the record inside of here, and I can tell it to go ahead and use this, not use the template, and go ahead and finish. And it will work through and go and do the merge, display everything that I need. And if I actually go and turn on my historic, I can see that I have historic parcels now where I had none before. Here's my historic parcel. Here's this other historic parcel. And then here is, over here, my historic tax lines that I have selected. So I task, it's this probably the easiest task that there is on here. However, we have found that the tasks, when you start using them, there are some limitations to them on what they can and can't do. For example, let's go back to tasks, and I'm going to go over to my task pane on here. And I'm going to do a split on a parent parcel. Again, create a record. All right, this is a split. And just to demonstrate here, I'm going to do today, and it's going to mark it with the time itself, or go from here, go to my next step. And it's creating a record now. And I'm going to skip this step because I already know where I am. And it says select the parent parcel. All right. And then it says it does a copy lines to. Copy lines to, for those of us that used to work in the ArcMap Parcel Fabric, this is a construct from parent. You select the polygon or you select the parent parcel. It then goes and uses the record references to determine what lines are needed to go and build that. And then it basically copies those lines over to the other layer from which you're building it. And this is one of those areas where we have an issue, because if I'm copying this to the tax layer, if I'm basically doing a split, this works fine. But what happens when I'm want to go and take it and split this into 2 lot layers? Let's go in and see conveyance division, show me only the active on here, and preserve attributes will go and create seeds in here for me. So let me go in and go to my next step. Basically, it performed the copy lines to, and I now should have, if I go in here and select all my features, I have conveyance division lines, and I have a conveyance division seed in here, which this is the seed here, which has the attributes of that original tax parcel. So now my next step to go in here is to go and draw the lines as far as where this thing should go. And here's one of those areas where I wish there was a little bit more work done on this. Notice it turned on everything that I had turned on my table of contents, so that it allowed me to go and build tax parcel lines inside of this conveyance division. Again, if I'm watching what I'm doing or I'm familiar with this, that's fine. But if I'm just a newbie and I'm not quite sure what I'm doing here, this can cause me problems. So again, the way this is supposed to work, I can go and put my new lines in for what I want to draw. I can create seeds, and it will create another conveyance division seed here. And I can tell it, go ahead and build this.
Frank, if they are not turned on in the table of contents, will they still open up over there?
It does not go and show them over in the create features polygon, or the create features pane on here. All right, so if I go in here and look at what it's created here, it created 2 polygons here. And these polygons, because they are not coded, let's go and make them lot polygons in here, just to show you they are full polygons, but because of the symbology, the seed, when it grows, does not have any sort of symbology for what this is, as far as what the subtyping component is on here. So I can just go and say, well, this is lot number, this is a lot. This is lot number 1. And this here is lot number 2 on here. All right, and if in fact there's some stated area on the CSM or on the subdivision, I could go and input those in here. It is automatically, because of some attribute rules that we've got, it's automatically calculating the calculated area and setting this to acreage. And we can go in and define that. But in this case, let's just go and say that this is 2 acres on here and go from here. So the question I have is, let me go to my task and finish this. The next step. So this worked really well, if in fact I keep it on the same layer. So now what happens, let's turn on my historic layers and see what's here. I have one tax polygon that is still current. It allows, here's my historic tax polygon, here's my current on here. So my problem is it can be confusing for someone who's never done this before. If I have, let's go back and undo that. Let's just go back and undo that and that. Take feature attribution, build, copy lines 2. Let's go all the way back to here. Let's go back to create a new record and go back and do this thing again. Skip this, select the parcel, and go into taxes. Let's stop that. I got ahead of it for some reason. Let's create the record. And this is, again, as with most of this, the tasks are nice if you can be patient and follow along with them. Select the parcel. What do I want to do with this? I want to copy lines to my tax parcel. It's telling me that this is not editable. Selectable, it's editable. I'm not sure why this is not working. Yeah, let's go back here, go back here.
Frank, do you have to discard your earlier edits?
I thought I had gone back far enough, but that's a good idea. Let's just go and discard everything else beforehand. And start this again. Start editing. Merge parcel. Create the record. We can skip this because we know what we're going to do. We can select this parcel. And then we can tell it to go ahead and we want to go into a copy lines to the current record, here, and do a copy lines 2. and it is not doing it. Let's go back and let's just restart ArcGIS Pro for this. And by the way, I'm not doing this on purpose, as I will often do for mistakes. This is really, it's a great idea to have these tasks. And if you can control that environment, that's fine. But what happens when one tries to do something beyond that? That's where we can get in trouble. All right, let's go back here again. Let's start editing. Let's do a split. Create a record. Locate the parcel. Let's skip this instead. Select the parcel. Go to the next step. Do a copy lines to. It is allowing me to go and proceed on here. I have one polygon selected. It is editable on here. Sequential attribution. Let's let this run all the way through. All right, let's try this by hand. Locate the parcel, copy lines to. I've got a new record here. Let's go and just test this right here. Let's go and build this out. That seemed to work fine. I'm wondering if in fact we're running into that copy lines to issue. If I copy lines to a different, that worked. But if I do a copy lines to tax parcels, gives me this error message. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. We're running into that. Sorry about that, guys. We are we've run into this bug here once in a while with copy lines too. And let's see if we can do this with a different one. Sorry for that. You can obviously tell that I don't I don't create these demos and make sure that this is all scripted out before. All right. So meets and bounds parcels, let's locate this. Let's go ahead and go to tax parcel lines. Let's go and create the parcels itself. While we're here, let's go ahead and make sure that we set a script. Let's go and turn on our so we know what these things are. Let's set our ground to grid and come on. Let's say that this is 15 degrees southeast. And there's our offset. Now I can go and put in 15 degrees southeast for 200 feet. And it will now go and rotate that bearing to fit exactly against that. And 200 feet. Go back to my closing on here. Get out of here. So again, I can't use this. I actually have to go to my next step here. For it to create the seed, which it has, it will then go and build the polygon and automatically go into align parcels. And it has selected let me go and add a let's try to go and generate this. All right. Line parcels. It's not a sign. So then it's going to go and attempt to clip this and assign sequential. There's a clip. Here's this. We did not align this up here well enough because we were having an error with it. So can you see my constraint with this? And one of the reasons why we tend not to recommend tasks. Tasks themselves are very, very nice. I like them. But if you get into a problem, there's no way to go and fix this, no way to go and figure out exactly what you should do on this. And I wish it was a little bit more robust, but it's not. Things like area description. If I have here an area description, let's create a record. right, let's go to the next step on here. Select the parent parcel. Go to the next step. Here, how do I want to divide this? Whether I want to divide this in 2 equal areas. All right, maybe I want to put it here, a proportional area. 2 different parcels. I tell it which side to go and divide it from. Let's divide it from this side here, and it will divide it in half. Show a preview and go ahead and do that. Sequential. So sequential 634-051 dash. All right, we started there, sequence by 1. Go ahead and do here and here. There's 01, there's 02. Finish this thing up. Again, it's the task will help a newcomer on here, but I just see there's a lot of issues with this. So let's see if we can dig into, for example, this split here that we were having a problem with. What's involved in that? If I go into Edit Designer, actually go to Designer of this task on here, I can look at what the actual task is on here. And I don't want to hide the task. And I wonder if these are locked. Looks at the new steps, new tasks, the group.
Frank, Alex has a good question in the chat.
Yes.
Can a task be configured to turn off the active record once the task is completed? So at the very end of the task, can you tell it to disable your active record?
I don't think you can. I think the only thing you might be able to do is tell it to turn off the heads-up display, but even that, because there is no command to do that, I don't think you can. I don't think you can do that at all inside of here. This is more of a sort of a freestanding component of it, but in order to go and put a task in there, to put a step inside of a task, it needs to be a command that you can run or something that you can access as far as a stored variable inside of your memory. And I don't think that task or that record is actually anything that you can do.
Frank, what if you, instead of trying to turn on active record, when you're done, just say, start a new record?
You could actually go and start a new record, but if you actually look and see what a new record actually does, if I go and create a new record here, come on.
See, look, it does nothing.
I'm like, I'm just batting 0 here. If I create a new record, all right, note it doesn't clear this thing out at all.
Gotcha.
All it does is brings up an empty pane until that new record becomes active on here. So Alex, I don't think you can do that. I know that's actually one of the things that from a procedural standpoint inside the Parcel Fabric, there's issues with that in that you have records that are still sitting there, that are active, and they're still recording things that you create, things that you delete. And I know personally I've done this several times where I go to, and I'm in a workflow and I'm doing some edits on here, and then I don't remember to change a record, and I'll go and start doing something else, and it'll have that same record, and it'll get tagged to that same record also. I know there's,
I've
yes,
been experimenting with like a scratch record in case it's things I don't want to keep track of, but I'm keeping track of anyway. Just kind of like if I'm toying around with things, and it was actually more of a play layer to try and get used to things, but I didn't want to have it associated with a tax parcel or subdivision and stuff like that.
interesting, yeah. You can do that, and I know Chris and I have been talking about using construction layers, which are just scratch layers that you go and do everything with. The only thing you can't do is you can't build a seed unless it's actually part of that record.
Right.
In order for you to build a seed, it has to be part of a parcel type on there. Yeah. So tax record tasks. Again, and we had we started this discussion before anybody else came on. Alex, I was asking Alex whether he's actually ever used any of the tasks, and he mentioned he didn't. Tasks are a great idea, they really are, but it's like the automated workflows inside of ArcMap Parcel Fabric. They're not robust enough to be the only thing that somebody can go and do. Because if you go off a little bit, you deviate from this actual workflow, it becomes very, very problematic. And you wind up getting stuck in, as you can see, I got stuck on some of these things, and things started not working right on here because the task takes over your system, turns off layers, turns off selectability, turns off all sorts of things in here that you want to be able to control. Another reason why I don't like tasks is that if you're going to go and clip things, it often will go and not allow you to clip multiple things at the same time. So for example, if I have something like this where I have on top of multiple layers, I have conveyance divisions, I have subdivisions, and I have tax parcels. With a task, if I go and build a parcel here and I tell it to clip, it only clips out the tax parcel layer. It doesn't clip out anything else underneath there. And there's limitations on what you can do with this with a task. Again, I have looked at them and I've said it's a great way to figure out what steps you have to go through on here, but that's about it. It's like it'll tell you in the beginning what some of these steps are. If I go in and go in here, come on, it should go in and allow me to go in there. It allows me to go and figure out what these steps are, much like the old ArcMap automated workflows did. You know, first you go and create the parcel fabric, then you create the record, then you create you locate the parcel using the locator, the find command, then you create a traverse, then you create a seed, then you build the record, then you go to align things, make sure they're aligned correctly, and then you clip them using the remainder option, and then you can assign sequential attribution. Again, that's fine. What happens if you're in the right place? You have to skip the locate element on here. And what happens if the lines that you're creating have a combination of tools and not just the traverse tool to go and do this and build this? My concern again is always about the fact that it's very single focus, and there's not a lot of deviation on here and what you can do. We'd rather go and just teach you how to go and do this process and not have to worry about it. For example, we have a record here. So let's say we're going to go and do this. We're going to go and split this parcel here. Again, we realize that in here, there's this issue with this copy lines too, but we can always get around it because we can go to the edit tab and say copy, and then we can go and do paste special, and we can paste them to our tax parcel layer on here. All right, and then we can go and say, just show me my current my active record here. There's my active record. I can then go and draw my lines or split my lines in here. Create my lines. Again, this is my tax lines in here. Let's turn this thing off. Create my lines. And then I can go in here and create my seeds in here. By the way, this doesn't have lines on here. Create my seeds. Wow, what is this thing doing? Why is it not letting me create seeds on here? Oh, another problem we have. Within the Parcel Fabric, you cannot create seeds on top of a polygon. All right, you can't have overlapping polygons on top of here. Everything has to relate to the individual record. So if I go in here and say, let's select everything that's associated with this record. All right, and go to my attributes and say, let's delete this polygon in here. Now when I go in here, I can create seeds on it. So you can't create a seed on top of an existing polygon. It's the reason why the copy lines too only copies lines and creates seeds on top of them. And then I go and build this. And let's turn this off. Let's turn this off. And let's go and clip this against these others. Now I have my clip layers here and here. By the way, if you notice, these things are currently coming in at pink. I have a display layer up here which says that if I don't have a name attribute in there to go and show it in pink so I can see which parcels have I created or split that don't have a name in it. You can also do this with an attribute rule, but we have found just it's easier to go in there, especially if the Parcel Fabric was an earlier version and you were using like 2.5 to go and do the cuts.
Frank, Andrea has a question in the chat. How would you map a condo with multiple tax polygons duplicate on each other if you're not able to stack?
You're not able to create, you are able to stack, you're not able to create seeds on top of one another. So once I have an individual unit, for example, if I have that condominium building, and let's say this one is a condo building right now, what I can do, and there's a couple ways that I can do this, I can go in here and say duplicate parcels. All right, and I can duplicate that parcel on here. Now the duplicate parcel will only allow me to do one at a time. But if I go down further into the multi-patch area, I can duplicate vertical. So I can go and take this vertical and tell, okay, I'm going to go and duplicate this by 10 feet. And I want to do this not by 100 feet, by 10 feet. and I want to do this 10 times here. All right. And I can go and duplicate it 10 times on there. So Andrea, it's a little bit different, but you have to have a polygon which is built before you can go and duplicate vertically. You first create the polygon by building the lines, creating the seed, but again, you can't plant the seed where there's already a polygon. But once you've got that seed, you can then take that and duplicate it vertically above there. And let's just make sure this. Yeah, I have 10 new ones plus my original one in here. All right, perfect. Yeah, I knew that you were going to be worried about it, and I know John is going to be concerned about it. John Inc. from Palm Beach County will be concerned about it also. But yes, you can do vertical condos with this, and you saw how easy it was. Again, it depends also on your attribution as far as where it is. An interesting thing is that if you build them with that vertical separation, when we switch over from a 2D view into a 3D view, you'll actually see the stacks of them on top of one another. They'll automatically be extruded up there as you go and do that. All right, listen, I am sorry, but I'm gonna have to leave here in a couple of minutes. So Ryan, why don't we have you go and show us a little bit about what you're doing? All right, I'll make you the presenter, Ryan.
Sounds good to me, Frank.
All right, thank you. And again, I apologize to everybody here. Some of the issues that we had with them, I think it just sort of demonstrated why we don't recommend using the tasks in the parcel fabric. We'd prefer to go and teach you the fundamental ways. This is how you do it. This is what you do, and it gives you more flexibility and also allows you to go and sort of figure out what to do if you run and you wind up running into a rabbit hole that you don't know what you're going to do with. So Ryan, I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to sign off on this, and I will again. I'll see you all next week, and thank you all for attending.
Take care, Frank.
Thanks.
Alrighty, so Frank asked me last week to go through and just talk a little about some tasks that I've done here at St. Louis County outside the fabric, and we're currently in the process actually of migrating into the new fabric, but we have a lot going on to do that. But for the last few years, I think since 2.2, 2.1, somewhere in there, I've been trying to determine improved properties within unorganized territories for volunteer fire department tax levies. It may not sound easy, but it's not, because we have unorganized territories. As you can see on my screen here, I have 5921 and 5921. So it's one township, but split between two different volunteer fire departments. So I've been tasked with trying to determine out how to, hold on one second here, to determine how to go about and figure out which parcels are in which sections and so forth, and which property numbers, yada, yada, yada. So it's a very simple task. So we select the sections that we need in the township. For this one, actually, I think it's just one section, I believe. So this one's not very fun. But yeah, so out of this whole township, French Volunteer Fire Department is one section, where the other township that covers the area for Volunteer Fire Department is multiple sections. So that's done. It's one simple one, not too hard to do in a normal everyday task. But if we go down to, let's see here, I think it's Babbitt. Oops, I did not want to do that. Nope, that's not that one. I got to figure out which one it is now. Here we go. So this is Moose Lake, or Morris Fall Lake Township, Volunteer Fire Department, covering unorganized territory 6112. So we have sections of the township they want to go to, but then within that township, there's now some sections who decide, oh, we're going to go with a different volunteer fire department. So now we have to select out of there, and then we got to go through and select, okay, we only need parcels that start with a certain parcel number. So I'll just run through here quick. It's pretty quick and easy. So I just go here. Oops, I gotta get out of my edit mode first. as with Frank is, you just do things. So here I have it pretty much automated. Other than this one, I do have it step by step so you can kind of see what's going on. So here it's just going through and selecting the one section that I showed you earlier that's in 5921. And as we look over here, we'll see numbers changing. So we have one section selected, and then go to the next step. Now we're going to go through, and within that section, we are going to then select the parcels that are in their tax layer. And you'll see right here, this number should be changing here. I think it goes down to like 44 or something like that, because there's not very many, it's a very rural area. It's almost to Canada. And if I was working within the office, it'd go so much faster. I'm actually working from home this week. So our very first number that I have to provide for our tax levy is, okay, there's 44 parcels within the fire department's range. But within those 44 parcels, how many actually have improved value on them? So that's our next step. We just go, it's going to go through and it's going to select any parcel that has a building value greater than 0. So all I'm doing is actually just providing numbers to our accountants so they can have an idea of what they are. They don't care what the building value is. They just cut the check to the volunteer fire departments. Since we, as a county, we are responsible for all things within unorganized territories because they do not have their own governing body. So the county oversees all those operations. So I think we go from 44, I think, down to 21 parcels, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. So those are the only numbers I have to give to our accountants, is those numbers to help them determine tax levy. So it's actually fairly simple. But if you had to go through do this constantly, you do your, select by location, select by attribute, constantly over and over again, it gets very annoying. And eventually this is actually gonna be passed on to our accountants so they can just click the buttons and get the numbers themselves. So I don't have to do it on a yearly basis. They can just do it whenever they want. Waiting for it to finish. Like I said, it's very simple. It's just an easy task to do. But like I said, if you have to keep doing it over and over and over again, this works slick. Okay, 27 parcels are our final answer out of 44 parcels total in that township.
And you just have to give them that number and that's it.
That's all I gotta do. And if they do come back and say, can we get more detailed information? I'll just run it again, go over, open the attribute table, export out a spreadsheet from the table and be like, here you go. Because sometimes they do come back.
I was like, you could also create a report if you wanted to have one more task if that was the case.
Exactly. Yep. And they haven't actually come back and asked for numbers like that yet, but I've thought about it. But yeah, it's just been they just want the numbers because we have agreement with some of the volunteer fire departments. They get $800 per call to cover those areas, so it's pretty simple. But as we have some areas of unorg territories that are starting to get more and more mining operations going on. Some of the mining companies have their own fire departments, some do not. So we are looking at potentially of increasing that number. So we may be looking at more of the commercial versus residential, trying to determine the different tax levy for those, especially when it comes to the mining operations. So that's pretty much all I had. I can click finish and it'll clear out my selection and I can go back to the next one. I come down here, start all over. And there's only a handful of unorg territories I have to do this to. So it's pretty quick and simple. Before I was doing this in ArcMap, I used Model Builder, and I was always running into issues with Model Builder, like it always does. But with the tasks, I have run into very few issues, other than when someone on Enterprise JS decides to name and change the name of a feature in our database, and then things get broken.
Of course.
So that's really all I had on that portion. It's pretty simple. I do have some things here too that I can show more on the fabric side if people want to see those for our control point database, where the surveyors will be taking over. We're bringing our surveyor control point database into our pro fabric as we're moving forward. So they're actually managing their control points within the fabric instead of being a separate database. So any questions, Brian or anybody? It's pretty simple.
Did you write all these tasks yourself?
Yes, I did. That was the fun thing, is trying to figure out. And like I said, this was back, I think might have been even 2.0 for pro, and some of the stuff, you guys know how it is. not working properly when they first came out. So yeah, so I went through and built. It's just pretty much all selection based. But it's being able to automate the process is huge.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing.
I think this is
normally I
a
have to go
perfect
through.
example of what tasks should be used for compared to what Frank was trying to do earlier, which was like more complicated workflow, you know?
Oh, I totally agree. And this is here. It's just like I clicked here. It processed 4 steps. I get my initial number. I just click my next step, and it's going to go through and get me my next number, and then move forward. It's very simple, and it gets people off my back. Instead of having to spend a whole day like I had to use, back in the day, now I can get it matter and done 10 minutes with all the different onwards that we have to worry about.
Yeah, I have some models that are basically simple ETLs that just run stuff out to, exporting things out and stuff. And I'm trying to figure a way of taking some tasks to say, okay, at midnight, run these 3 things or these 4 things. So I just don't have to remember to do it anymore. So that's kind of how I'm thinking of how to use tasks also.
And actually, it's a good thing you brought that up, Brian, because I was actually thinking if the accountants don't actually want to run this, I'll just set it up so it runs as a task, and we'll just have it so it just creates a notes page, just a text file with the results.
Yeah.
This is what I was thinking. That way, I can just say, all right, it's going to run annually. We're on this date, and just let it run, and then we'll get notified via email that the file's ready to look at.
That's a great idea.
So as you can see with this one here, it went from 200 and some parcels within the township to 30 that have improved value. So not very many people are actually within the township. So, but no, that's basic what I have here for these tasks here. Like you said, Chris, that it was, it's simple and it's direct and it's easy to do. It's not complicated like what Frank was showing with the fabric task.
And like you mentioned, one of the primary functions of the task and what it should be used for is to hand off to other people so they can run them as well in the easiest way possible. So I think this is great.
Yeah, can you see this map now? I just brought over with aerial imagery on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, so this here is I just created, it's our control point database update. We're still in the works here, but again, I'm building this for non-GIS people. They are surveyors, and some of them do understand GIS, but some have been surveying for 40 years. They don't care about GIS, but they're being forced to start inputting numbers, inputting control stuff here, because right now they use a current access database that's 20 years old, and it's just to the point where it's only one person at a time being able to edit. So they're actually a long line of people waiting to put control points in. But here it's just very simple. Like here, I won't run through it, but I'll just go here with the new control point. This zoom to the location, and then they create their point and just go through and does all their attribute updates. And it's very simple. And the only thing they have to do is zoom to location, put a point down, and it goes all the way up through number 5, and then they enter what other information they enter, and it just goes through and just finishes out their point. We still have a lot of work to do on that because we got to figure out how to do the restrictions and stuff on control points and so forth. But it's a start process for non-GIS folks to be able to actually enter spatial data into our parcel fabric as we move forward. So it's very simple.
Very cool.
It looks like Mark has a question in the chat. I have a set of models that need to run in order, such as build parcels with fabric data and tax data, then publish updates to server model builder. Does not seem to want to run separate models in order unless we copy models to a Python script. Are tasks better at doing this or not really?
Well, I guess it's to each their own. I can help Mark on offline too, because I know you guys use one of the ETLs that I originally created. I don't know what, a decade ago or so, Brian, that you guys take and modified for clients to export stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be something that I could hand off to Mark too to work on and use for that whole process, the ETL process there. But task-wise, I have not looked at using tasks from there, because going forward with the Pro Fabric, with it being all web services, a lot of those processes no longer have to take place, because people will be able to access through branch versioning the layers just through the REST API. So it's going to change going in the future, I think.
Gotcha. Does anyone else have any questions for Ryan?
Going once, going twice. Do you have anything else to add, Ryan, or?
I don't. The biggest thing with tasks is you got to play with them to really understand. Because there are certain tools, like if I go back into my edit or exit design and then go back, oops, I want to go here. There are certain tools through here. Nope, that's not the one I want. I don't know which one it is. But there are, just like anything, clip can mean 5 different things within GIS.
Right.
You just have to find the correct task, correct tool to actually put in the task to make it work properly. So that's one thing, is just playing with it, just like model builder. Just got to play with it to understand how it really works. But I recommend not doing it on production data, of course, like everything else. But no, just play with it, and then that's the only way to really learn how to operate the task. And the cool thing with tasks is you're able to schedule those offline, not when you're doing things, to run. I haven't experimented with that yet. I don't know if have you, Brian, at all?
No, that's what I'm starting to work on right now.
Yeah,
There's
so I think
all this, I got production work that gets in the way though.
Yeah, so there's a lot to do there. It's just, yeah, it's really, I have just play with it to really understand how to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, Ryan. We appreciate it.
No problem. Like I tell your dad, I'm always willing to share and talk.
Does
Right.
anybody else have any other questions?
Doesn't look like
No,
it.
doesn't look
You
like it.
wrap this up?
Let's do it.
All right. Don't forget, next week, the Thursday, March 25th at 2 p.m. Central Time is the webinar, Get ArcGIS Enterprise Ready. That's going to be with
That's awesome.
GIS Inc.
Can you
And there's a registration link out there for everyone too. So if you don't get it, just send us an email and we'll send it to you.
We can send it to you. Yeah. Thank you, everybody,
Anything
for
else, Chris?
attending. I think that's it.
You do.
Everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Sounds good.
Take
You guys
care.
have a good one.
You too. Thanks, Ryan.
And if you guys would too, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, welcome. It's Thursday, March 18th, 2021, just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Daylight Time. And this is the Pane Consulting Parcel Fabric Workshop. Before we start, we've got some housekeeping to take care of. Next week, for the normal type of deep dive,